know that I'd rather get death than life, and that still is true today. I believe death is the ultimate freedom, so I'd rather just have my freedom as soon as I can get it.
That was Jodi Arias with a shocking revelation. Remember, yesterday she was convicted of first-degree murder in the death of her ex-boyfriend. And now the question is, should Arias get the death penalty? Well, we brought back our expert primetime power panel to help us get through the next phase of this very scandalous trial, which, by the way, has been postponed to next week, and no one is saying why. Well, we're going to welcome Anna Yama, former prosecutor turned defense attorney, and Dan Gillian, who is a trial attorney. So, to start off with, today she said she'd rather have the death penalty. Hello, nice freaking ploy on that part.
Let's talk about not being able to control her client. I mean, in the world that I live in as a criminal defense attorney, it's very important to have client control. And I'm not saying that the defense attorneys in this case did a bad job, because I think they did a good job with what they had.
Yeah.
But this just goes to show that she's not controllable. This woman is crazy. No defense attorney would let their client go on national television to say, I would rather die. It just wouldn't happen.
Unless it was trying to do some sick, weird reverse psychology thing.
Well,
what do you think?
I don't think the prosecutors, there's a lot of people think the prosecutor is going to jump on this and say, well, look, she wants the death penalty anyways. I don't think he's going to do that. I think he's going to steer clear of that and go with the facts, or totally on his side for the death penalty. All he's got to prove is this was cruel, heinous, or depraved, and I think he's got that one covered. Keep in mind, she's got a website right now. She's selling T-shirts for $15.
She sold her panties.
She sold art
as well. Panties.
Yeah, she sold panties.
She authenticates her artwork with her thumbprint for $195. So
where's this money going to?
Well, up until the conviction, she was actually able to keep it. So all of that's hers. There's a law in Arizona. I don't know if it's going to be enforced, but there's a law there that says once there's a conviction, all that money has to go to the state of Arizona, and it's supposed to be held for 5 years for the victims. Well, there's only really one victim here.
Which is Travis Alexander.
Well, his family. And his family came forward yesterday immediately and said, we're going to file a wrongful death lawsuit. So theoretically, if you go buy a T-shirt from Jodi Arias now, which has a survivor on it, because she's supposedly a domestic violence survivor, you're actually giving money to the family.
Let's go back to the death penalty argument, because I have a different outlook on this. I think that, generally speaking, women don't get death. And I'm talking about the statistics, okay? Statistically, there are only 3 women on death row in the state of Arizona. One of those convictions actually got overturned. The last woman to have been executed in Arizona was in the 1930s. Whole nationwide, there's about 3,000 people on death row, and of those people, only around 60 women, which makes up less than 2% of the people. So when you're talking about statistics, and when you're talking about women versus men, it's very difficult for a woman necessarily to get the death penalty. And I think that's what's going to be somewhat difficult in this case. Granted, the facts are there, and I understand that Juan Martinez is going to argue this crime was done in a very cruel and depraved way. But at the same time, there's a big difference between a jury convicting someone and then sentencing someone to death.
Well, I think that they probably, though, the reason they convicted her, and all 12 of them, by the way, said it was premeditated, all of them have to be fairly irritated with her because she lied to them, and she lied before and after and during trial about what she did. And I think that they're probably irritated with her and are ready to actually sentence her to death. The issue to me is it going to be 11 jurors and 1 holdout on the death penalty? Because all it takes is 1 holdout on the death penalty, and she's not gonna.
Well, that's why I think it's reverse psychology on her part, because I think that she feels the jury wants her to get the death penalty. So if she says, I want it, that's going to give her relief, they're going to go, well, we want you to rot in jail then.
They shouldn't know about it, though. They shouldn't know about it, but they probably do.
You think they're so sequestered and they don't know?
Well, they're not sequestered. That's the problem. They probably do know about it right now, even though they're not supposed to. And so Jodi Arias is out here saying, and that's the argument, is that she's manipulative, right? People are saying
so
completely manipulative, and that's why she's saying, listen, I would rather die, thinking maybe I'll reverse psychologize them.
Of course.
But her
Why can't you see right through that? I saw her, I'm like, oh, lady, you're still trying to manipulate?
And I think the biggest problem and the biggest hurdle that the defense is going to have to overcome is that she testified straight for 18 days, right? And the jury obviously didn't buy her arguments. They did not believe that she was telling the truth. So the defense attorneys are going to have to go in front of the same 12 jurors and ask them to spare her life. Now, with that in mind, again, I'm going to stick my neck on the line and say I think it's very difficult for especially a female to get sentenced to death. I do. I think it's one thing to convict, but it's another thing to sentence someone to death. And I think that whoever's sitting on that jury, that's going to be a very, very hard decision.
And this, her little ploy about saying that's what she wants, and they don't, you know, they want her to be punished. You know, that might be what she needs. That might,
I don't know,
turn that one person.
I agree. I don't think that there's going to be a death penalty because I think there's going to be at least one holdout. This is what the problem is that she acted so crazy, even after the conviction, to go out there and talk to this reporter and say she wants a death penalty. She's shown herself to be completely outside that picture of what everyone thinks the person is who should be on death row. She doesn't seem like just the Jeffrey Dahmer who eats people.
And that's one of the factors.
She acts really
she hasn't
crazy.
killed a bunch of people.
But
just
see, that's,
yeah,
but that's the whole thing. There's no doubt that this was depraved. There's no
But
doubt.
Wait. I need a, you know, like the judge's
gavel.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna take a quick break, and we're gonna when we come back, we're gonna take up where we left off. So welcome back to our primetime power panel. We're talking about Jodi Arias and whether or not she should get life or death. Okay, Anna Yum is our prosecuting attorney turned defense attorney, and Dan Gillian, civil attorney. You do it all.
Yeah.
Expert attorney and okay. So the point is, let's talk about the aggravating factors here on what they're going to think about and what, you know, deciding whether she should get the death penalty.
Well, Dan was talking about how you know, Jodi Arias was really crazy, and what I was going to say is that those are things that, as if I were the defense attorney, I would focus on, because as a mitigating factor, there's only 5 that they can really consider. Now, one of her mitigating factors is that she doesn't have a criminal history, okay, and that's something that the jury can decide. Another issue is that there's a factor that says if your capacity and your ability to appreciate the wrongfulness of your conduct was in some way significantly impaired, not enough to constitute a defense, but if it was significantly impaired that you really couldn't understand the wrongfulness of your conduct, then that could be a mitigating factor. And I think that's the only thing that the defense can really argue right now, is that look at how crazy she is, right? They argued that she suffered from battered woman syndrome during the trial. They said she was the victim. You know, right now the prosecution,
they didn't believe her.
Right, and they didn't believe her.
She's getting a psych evaluation today, right? They took her
right,
to, yeah.
right, and she's also on suicide watch. So.
Right.
Which could be why we're not having the penalty phase
Right.
today. They didn't state a reason, but I suspect it has something to do with the fact that she's on suicide watch. There's something going on there, and the judges said, "Hey, listen, she's not going anywhere anytime soon, so might as well just postpone it."
She's on suicide watch.
Well, no, I don't think so. I think she might be bruised and battered or by herself. But I mean, this guy was butchered. I mean, that's the bottom line. He was butchered, and that is fairly unique for death penalty cases. I mean, a lot of times it's just, you know, you shoot somebody but she butchered this guy, and that was clearly depraved. Then she got on the stand for 18 days and lied. I think that's what makes her different than a lot of the women, the 3 women right now that are on death row. I think that Maricopa County, is that where it is, where Joe Arpaio, I think that's a county that's willing to put someone on death row.
But see,
however, I just don't think she fits the mold of the type of person that the average juror wants to send to the death
I want
chamber.
to ask something. You say there's 3 women that are on death row. What did they do?
And I was just going to talk about that, because I think I disagree with Dan's assessment, because I think the 3 women who are on death row had more aggravating factors. So one of the women was convicted of killing a father and his 9-year-old daughter. Okay, there was another woman.
So those are 2 murders.
There was exactly a double homicide. There was another woman who was convicted of killing her elderly husband, and also for financial gain. And she stabbed him in the throat, and she also bludgeoned him 23 times with a stool. And then finally, the 3rd woman killed her 4-year-old son.
What?
Right, killed her 4-year-old son, and that was also for an insurance policy. So those have aggravating factors.
Those are some crazy.
That are only in here. It's cruel and heinous and depraved. So those are some distinguishing factors that you can point to.
She's more than just depraved. She not only butchered this guy. She gets on the stand, and when she's alive and he's dead, she comes out there when he's in the grave and says, "Oh, by the way, he's a pedophile. Oh, by the way, he beats women." I mean, that is just right there.
That really pisses you off.
It does.
You said that the last time I heard. And I don't ever hear anybody say that's wrong, but you've mentioned that a couple of times.
And those are egregious
It's just
facts.
lame. It's just lame. She should just, you know, at some moment in her life, that if it's fleeting right now, I don't know. But just stand up and do one thing that modest class act at some point, and just say, listen, I did the wrong thing. I shouldn't be put to death, but I'm going to stop defaming this guy while he's in his grave.
And that's one thing that the defense has to overcome, is that she has not expressed any remorse, and that's a bad fact for the defense. That's a very bad fact for the defense, because she continues to demonize and to victimize Travis even after the verdict's been read.
I gotta say, when do you think they'll make a decision? Because I want you guys back.
Well, they're coming back on May 15th, and then if the jury does decide that it's a penalty phase, they have to deliberate, go to the penalty phase.
Plan that date to come back here, our Primetime Power panel.
Thank you, Taylor.
Thank you.